In as much as you would want to argue with me on this, I'll prefer you argue in my comment section. Our families, our community, the hood we grow up, the area, the people we find ourselves whilst growing up, always has a major role to play in our character or our mannerisms as individuals. In today's video, I'll be talking about being defensive. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're an old subscriber, I would like to say thank you for sticking with me. And if you're new on this channel, I'd like you to subscribe and turn on your notification button so you get new videos as soon as they drop. So earlier on, I made mention of being defensive. The topic of being defensive is one that most of us do not even want to agree that we have, or it's a character that we, in one way or the other, we possess. Being defensive is not something that is limited to just the female gender alone. It's something that has to cut across with both female, male, old, young, what have you. Sometimes we want to say this is who I am, that is who I am. First, how do you even know someone is defensive? They always argue at every slightest point you raise or any argument you bring up. We are always ready to be the loudest. We always want to be heard. Whenever we do something wrong or you do something wrong, we always want to return the favor by saying, you've done this before, so why are you pointing fingers at me? I mentioned our background. For me personally, I like to share a story with you. Growing up in the kind of family I come from, I'm from a polygamous home. I'm no longer shy of talking about it. Growing up in such a family you grow up with so many people that have so much opinion about your life. They take so many decisions without even asking if you want it or you don't want it. I was curbed. I was not allowed to make friends. So the transition from my childhood, teenage life, adulthood, I don't even know what happened within those periods, because most of my life during that period, there were decisions made on my behalf and what have you. A clear example was when I was in the secondary school. None of my friends, I mean nobody except one who knew my house, and that was by chance. Nobody knew my house and I did not know their house either. You know, secondary school, you make friends, you want to know people's house, people visit you, sleepovers and things. I did not have that opportunity. But the only one time a friend of mine got to know my house was when I was sick during my final year. What did she do? She had to help me or bring me home. That was how she got to know my house, and that was the first and the last time anybody from my school got to know my house. That's how bad it is. My background, my upbringing. Most of the times, let me give you a very simple scenario. Most of us are in African homes where, for instance, when it's Christmas, we don't even get asked, do you like these shoes? Sometimes they just take your broom, measure the size of your leg, go to the market, get you whatever shoes of their choice, and you have to wear it. All these things have had a way of playing on us as individuals. I keep using the word us, we, because I am a victim of being defensive. My background played a big role on the kind of character I picked up somewhere along the line. I always wanted to be heard. I was always the loudest in the room. I was just waiting, willing. Growing up, I was always waiting, willing that there is going to be a day when I will finally have my freedom so I could air my view. Because I was stopped. I was never given the opportunity to explain myself. In an African home, when you try to explain yourself, you are termed as being disrespectful. You don't look at the face of your elders when they are talking. In a simple words, your opinion does not matter. Do you ever sit to think that this in one way has had a role to play in who you are? When people talk, sometimes you can't talk back because you're still living in that fear. Or when people talk, because you have your freedom now, you always want to talk back. It's being defensive. It's being defensive in a way that because my upbringing did not give me the opportunity to express myself, make my mistake as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, it extended into my social life. As soon as you raise a point, like I said earlier on, I always wanted to be heard. I felt like my point should be the only valid point. It has to be my way or no way. And this affected me. It affected me to, a very large part of my life where I was drifting away from my family because I just didn't want to be in contact with anybody that would put me in a point or in a position where I can no longer defend myself. Defensive people, we find excuses easily. We don't even listen to understand. As soon as you make a point without us understanding you, we are coming for you, or they are coming for you. These people are in your offices, they are in the schools, they are in your marketplaces. Their background. Sometimes sit back and ask yourself, why am I like this? Is it who I am? Is it supposed to be a characteristics or a manner I should possess as an individual? That is being defensive. Another thing that I got to understand at a point of my life, when I finally had the freedom I was looking for, I started living alone, when you start to make life on your own and working. I became a shadow of my own self. I was lonely. I couldn't start a friendship and keep it for a long period of time because of what? Lack of exposure. That brings us to our second point. Lack of exposure. Exposure has nothing to do with just travel and see, know places, get to know people. Exposure has more than just that. If your upbringing did not give you the opportunity to be exposed, you can't visit friends, you can't know things teenagers knew, or you are not taught, and everything you had to know at a certain age of your life was self-taught, you lack exposure. They say charity begins at home. It is for a reason. If you are the way you are, it is the way it is because you started from your home. I lacked exposure. Most of the times, a clear example is, you would notice, and I know most ladies or most guys would want to reckon on this point with me. You promise your friends, oh, we'll hang out, let's go out, let's do this, let's do that, and the day comes, I'm all dressed. All of a sudden, I lost interest. I just want to sleep. I just want to be by myself. Not because I don't want to be with them. Not because I don't want to go out. But because I'm scared that when I go out, how do they do things when they hang out? Would anybody stop me? Is somebody going to judge my dressing? Is somebody going to come at me for underdoing or for overdoing? So I would rather want to take the back seat and be at home. And in my defense, whenever you ask me, oh, why didn't you show up? I tell you, oh, something came up. Something came up. Something is always coming up. Most times I felt like when it comes to the topic of exposure, sometimes I felt like if I'm not heard, it means that I'm not intellectually good enough. If I'm not heard, I become intimidated. I forget always that being heard does not mean that you have to be loud. Most of the times, the few friends I had, I talked about being lonely. The few friends I had and the ones who meant well for me would go like, you shouldn't do this. Maybe you should also listen to the other person's point. There's always a voice in my head, and that voice is called ego. We all have ego, and it's a big thing on its own. Ego is a mind on its own. Ego tells you every other person is wrong and you are right. So whenever I'm in my closet, I'm just thinking, well, they are wrong. I have to be heard. If they don't want to hear me, they are making me feel like I'm not good enough intellectually. I'm not good enough mentally. So ego was dragging as my friends or people who meant well for me were dragging. So it was a battle of ego and people who meant well for me. So with time, I started enjoying my own company more, push people away because I know the next thing is if I cough, you're going to complain. That's just on a lighter note. So exposure, your background, it has a role or a very big role on your individuality. You are not defensive because you chose it. It is not who you are. Because I used to tell myself, this is who I am. It's either you take it or you leave it. No. It's not who you are. You're being defensive. You are hiding behind some pains. You are hiding behind some trauma you've been through, either growing up or at a point in your life. Let's talk about trust issues. Trust issue is another very big issue when talking about defensiveness. People who have been hurt, maybe you've been abused as a lady. Abused in so many ways. Abuse comes in different forms. It could be mentally, it could be sexually, it could be body shaming, it could be different things. So the least opportunity you get or the little power you get, you just want to stand your ground and defend yourself. Even when anybody means well for you, you want to defend yourself. It's good to defend yourself, really. But sometimes, in a diplomatic word, you always want to listen to the other party. So trust issue was a big problem for me. I had trust issues not because I can't trust anybody. I had trust issues because sometimes the people we think that they are going to be the lords of our life, they fail us. Sometimes the people you're supposed to believe, we end up trusting them. And trust is a big word. And it's when you trust people, you get disappointed. One of my biggest trust issues is my family. I had trust issues because of my family first. Another place where my second trust issue started coming from was relationship. My very first relationship almost cost me my mental health. I could just be walking on the road and I'm talking to myself. So eventually, I'm in a very, very peaceful relationship now. I can say that with pride. But there are days where I break down. There are days where I'm scared that this is too good for me. It's too good to be real. I don't deserve it because of my previous experience. Sometimes I'm just waiting like, okay, this is too good to be real. It's a time bomb. It's going to explode. Eventually, it's going to blast on me and I'll be put to shame. Religion, the church, our leaders, spiritual heads. Sometimes you pour out how you feel, the trauma you're going through, and the next day you are the topic of discussion. If not that they are preaching about you, they refer to you to other people or point at you as an example to people. So if I trust you enough to talk to you about a very secretive part of my life, and then the next thing I hear it's on the street is being discussed by just anybody, I would not want to talk to anybody again. And if anybody tries to want to offer help based on the same issues they have had, whether they meant it for good, I am just going to stand my grounds. Oh no, I'm fine. Oh no, you can't tell me that. Remember earlier when I said this is not a female problem. It's both male, female, and different ages. Even guys are defensive. And some guys you see, I say, oh, they are introverts. Some are really introverts. That's their persona. But some are not. They have grown up in such a way that, guys have their male ego normally. They are supposed to be rulers. They are supposed to be head. They are supposed to be in charge. But they grew up, had experiences that prevented them from expressing themselves. So they are the way they are. They act differently. Some may talk, some may not talk. Some will argue like women. That is being defensive. That is their upbringing. Trust issues, trauma, mental issues, different kind of thing adding up to a man being the way he is. Don't be fast in judging people. Parents, I would need parents, teachers, people, pay attention to your kids. Let's pay attention to our kids also. They are not left out. Allow your children express themselves. Hear them out. Allow them make the mistakes so you can correct them whilst you can. Don't just shut them off. There's this thing I always think of. Growing up, I didn't even know my favorite color till I got to a certain age in my life before I knew that, okay, I had this favorite color. Allow your children to be expressive. Let them make the mistakes. Correct them. Teach them resolution in a very diplomatic way. Let them know that they can talk without screaming. Let them know. Teach them. Allow them to learn and unlearn as they grow into different ages. You would want to ask, why am I strong enough, or why am I talking about it today? Because I decided to heal. I healed from personal experiences. I had to stop arguing. I had to listen to myself. I had to look at the surroundings, the people around me. Even those who complained, the ones that left, the ones that stayed. I had to start taking notes that, okay, you can actually ask questions and understand before you talk. So in healing, learn to listen before you speak. It is not everything that is thrown at you that you need to reply or respond to. Look for a trusted person and talk to them. Talk to somebody. Everybody cannot be bad. There must be somebody that you trust enough. Cry, break down when you have to, when you need to. Be satisfied in your own tears, but come out stronger and better. And lastly, there is nothing I do without praying. At a point, all I had was God. Aside the other things, confiding in people, speaking out, not keeping things to myself, listening before I speak, not responding to everything. My last hope was God. I started praying about it. That God, I don't want to be like this. I want to be like this. I want to be a woman. I want to be classy. I want to be this. I want to be that. And mind you, I'm a work in progress. Sometimes I still show the traces, but my ability to recall myself that, hey, this is not what you want to do, is what has brought me this far. So please, you can also heal from it. Don't hide it. Don't say this is who you are. That is not who you are. You can heal. Speak to someone. Admit it that you have a problem. Look for a trusted source. Start to listen more and talk less. Do not reply to everything or respond to everything. And please put God at the center. Just ask for peace. That is all you need. Ask for peace and inner healing. And I tell you, you are good to go. If this video has been impactful or helpful in one way or the other, kindly leave your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video as they come your way. See you next time. Bye.